Good afternoon and welcome to another Tech Talk. Gentlemen, good to see your faces. Mikey, what kind of topic are we talking about today?
Well, we actually received some feedback, and this is very much based off a previous Tech Talk that we had about creating the importance, I guess, that we see in creating a flat floor. So we did have some feedback from a customer who would very much just like us to cover a similar topic, but more so about a narrow corridor or a hallway, or I guess in a situation where you might have an opportunity just to sort of squeeze the machine in. Rather than having a big square room, which is what we always like to concentrate on because it's nice and easy and easy to talk about. But yeah, so take it away, guys. I'm interested in this one as well. So keen to see what you guys reckon.
Oh, it's a very good question. How will we tackle a corridor that, let's say, we only got access to a 680, the corridor is only 1200 wide, let's say. You know, we know that the machine cuts harder to one side, but you know, if the floor is not completely flat, it will kind of tilt, and we really want to avoid that ridge down the middle. Very, very good question, actually.
Yeah, no, I wish I had the answer.
So we need some more feedback, please, everyone.
I guess the question is, what's the ideal scenario, and how do we work back from there to get the best result? Because obviously, we're making a presumption here that we're talking about a machine sort of in that 600 to 700 mil wide cutting width, and we're talking about a corridor that may be up to maybe 1200 wide. Is that pretty standard these days? So, I mean, ideally, what's the ideal thing in this situation? The ideal situation is to have a hallway that's at least probably 1500, correct? All right, so we've got the opportunity to run the machine down both sides of the hallway, and we've still got a little strip in the middle, but we can't do that in this situation, right?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Unfortunately,
hence the question. If this is imaginary, maybe we could get it done before the structure goes up.
Well, that's what I was going to say.
Well, good. Then we still don't need to answer the question. This is very good. I like it.
Is this what we call a non-tech talk?
I hope everyone has a great weekend. Chasing rainbows and walking unicorns. Thank you for your time.
I was trying to establish what the actual problem was.
The problem is you've been off a grinding machine for too long. No, the problem is you go into a hallway and the machine is quite wide. The hallway is narrow. There's not enough space to do a run down each side, because if you do a run down one side and we want to go to full aggregate exposure, pushed up against the wall, we do a run down one side, and then we turn around the machine and do the other side. Say the hallway is 1 metre wide using an 820. You've got a massive overlap when you do the second pass. It's going to divert all the pressure to the lower side of the machine, despite the fact that it's pulling towards the wall. If you're using a same direction machine, gravity is still going to do its thing. The friction and the forces generated by that don't defy physics, unfortunately. And so it's still going to fall to the lower point that's already been ground, and it's going to be tilting on an angle, which means it's also going to load up the tool with a bit more weight and gouge out the other side. So not a really good situation to be in. You'll be chasing your tail trying to fix the ridge that you've just left in the first run. And it's in a really precarious spot that you won't just be able to run the machine back over. So you start doing some damage to this floor, and now you're in trouble. I don't recommend that. Not a good approach. If you like, I'm happy to give my advice on this one, because nobody else wants to. It's
well,
okay,
I'm
guys.
feeling
Nobody's
like
going to be judged on this.
I was just going to say, just to sort of, I'm guessing there's going to be a lot of hand grinding edge work that needs to be done. Would that be a fair thing to say? Or
that would be my advice. Pick a side that you want to run the machine on, and pick a side that you want to do by hand, because on that first cut, at least, that's pretty much the choice that you're going to have to make. And my preference would be pick the side on first cut that has the most door openings on it. And the reason is, when you lay down that first cut, we want to go to very, very even speed, and that'll give us a nice flat linear look to the floor. But if we do the side that's got the least doors on it, and then we do all the hand grinding for first cut around all the doorways, it's going to be really difficult for us to get a nice flowing, tight straight reflection down that wall, because when you're doing it all by hand, you're not going to get as flat as you will with the machine. Mind you, you might have a hallway that has the equal amount of doors on either side. Oh shit, second cut is where you're going to go, all right, now we'll do second cut a bit slower, a bit more of an even speed to try and get our handwork all sorted out as well. So you're really just going to have to go, some guys say they'll run the machine straight down the guts and then they'll do both sides by hand, which to me is like, why would you? You're doing twice the amount of handwork that you need to do. You just pick a side, and one side's going to require a lot more handwork to bring it into check, but then you do a pass over afterwards when it's down the same level as the other side, and you're not going to have the issue anymore once you've done the initial first cut down to the aggregate.
What about yourself, Milan? What did you used to do when you came up against this sort of situation? I guess you weren't running Husky machines either. I'm guessing that was the other.
Yeah, I was running HTC machines, so they weren't giving me that much of an edge. But again, you still have to do a lot of handwork to get it right. Even though it was a four-headed machine, it would still, tilt, and it could give you a gouge down the middle as well. So yeah, had to get on the hands and knees. I was going to play devil's advocate that we, gave everybody insight that you have to do a lot of handwork. And I was going to say, yeah, go down the middle. That way you can do a lot of edges. But no, Josh's advice there about running it on one side is a whole lot better. Unless you really love edges.
Yeah, you'll feel a lot more accomplished if you spend the whole day doing edges.
Exactly. So, if you really like your hands and knees or rack attack, then yeah, you can do the whole corridor on the hands and knees.
I'm going to go the shameless plug, and I guess once you're through with your cuts, jump on the Spec 5s. Absolutely. You're going to be sick of being on your hands and knees by that stage, certainly. So invest and go to Spec 5s and, get punched into that colour and clarity into the resins there.
I'm sure we'll get a lead-up question is about, do I have to do it through every single pass in the process, or what about grouting? Do I have to grout by hand now, that amount? That's probably going to be the question that's going to come out of this one as well. So,
that's a great question. We never talk about grouting. So look, let's delve into that.
Okay, so you did your first pass with your first cut down one side, and you finished out the other side by hand. I would recommend doing your second pass, so your 50-60, choose the other side and go down the side that you did more by hand, and that way you can correct anything that you've done by hand, and then you're not putting as much work into the other side. When it comes to the grouting, hey, guess what? We're going to go through and grout all the edges first by hand anyhow, and it's nowhere near as critical. You could go down one side if you wanted to, and then repeat hugging the other wall if you wanted to, or you can go sway the machine the whole way forward and all the way back. It's really not quite as critical.
Yeah, our floor should be flat at that stage, and we're not really creating new gouges with the grouting diamonds.
Right.
Well, this is one I think we should get lots of feedback on. Leave some comments below, everyone. It'd be nice to see if anyone else has got any tips and pointers and how they find they go about it. Absolutely.
Guys, just one question for you, Milan and Josh. A lot of the machines coming out with adjustable weights now. People will ask the question, is there any benefit to having a weight down on the wall side and the middle of the corridor, the weight up, to try and get a bias to one side of the machine? Is there anything to be gained from that? Some people might be wondering whether that's something at a disposal.
I've actually got a feeling that that's your own question you're asking, Tim.
Asking for a friend.
I don't know if we will have that much of an impact, to be honest. I mean, if you're cutting to full exposure and you cut 5 mil, I think the machine offsetting on a tilt would be far more because of that cut with the wheels dropped into the 5 mil versus the weight, what the weight's going to do. I don't think, apart from a nice wobble on the machine, on the head, I don't think it's really going to improve it. I think you'd have to stick to doing one edge by hand.
It's this was called the straight and narrow, Tim, not the weight and narrow. But anyhow, personally, I wouldn't recommend it, because if you've got one down and one back, you've got uneven weight, and that head of the machine is in constant motion, which means that when the discs come around to one side, it's weighted, and that force goes somewhere, and it goes on the belt, and it goes to the motor. So it's going to have a inconsistent load on the motor all the time. So you're going to have this rising and dropping of RPM and torque, and that's not going to be conducive to getting that nice, smooth, deep cut. and consistent along the edge. That's actually going to make it more difficult for us to achieve that. You'll probably see a bit more of that, gouging or half mooning from the machine because it's not running as smooth as it can. And this is a time we want it to run as smooth and consistent as possible. So I would.
So a bit of a pinch point basically for the machine from a mechanical point of view. Another question that probably interesting to be talking about is, say, particularly with a dual drive machine where we've got the weight of the motor on the back of the machine, the planetary motor. We're going into an end of a corridor, and obviously we can only push this machine so far into a corner. Things to be aware of as far as the back of the machine grinding out a bit more than the front, just getting back to your reflective lines down the corridor and things to keep in mind from that point of view.
Mm-hmm. No comment.
We feel like that's fake news. Term hasn't been thrown out in a while, and I'm bringing it back.
Look, there's not a lot you can do about that outside of maintaining a consistent speed all the way up to the end, and then accepting that once you get onto the hand grinder, that's going to mean bringing a straight edge as well and checking everything as you go along. There's not any real get out of jail on that one.
I guess maybe there's contractors out there listening to this advice about hand grinding. Perhaps they're thinking to themselves, my edge work is never as consistent as the machine, or I can't get the gloss, it's always different color and whatnot, and I'm going to take the words out of Mike, shameless plug. If you want to, edge like a pro and learn how to properly blend your edges in with the floor, then jump onto a seminar, because we do spend a lot of time on the edges. Well, not a lot of time on the edges, we spend a lot of time explaining how to do the edges correctly. So
you want to take longer to do your edges? Come and do the seminar.
No, in all things seriousness, we're going into quite detail how to get the perfect edges. So
absolutely. I think Tim's comment before about having one weight up and one weight down, I think I might go and put one weight down and one hand up, and just one arm on the bar and one with a beer in it, and put one weight down and one weight up. And
it'll be a great example if you do it for an hour or two, and when you get up, you'll have the same kind of wonkiness.
Well, after I've had a few, my edges look fantastic. I've found that absolutely. The clarity, not so much. But,
I don't know. These people who hand over the bottle of champagne to the customer after the project is finished, I could never do that. I actually needed to drink it before I showed them.
Yeah, absolutely. No, good one, guys. Great topic. Nice to get it off the back of some feedback, and I think a bit of a pretty interesting one. So again, some real day-to-day stuff that customers no doubt come up against. But good one, guys.
Thanks, gents. And everyone have a great weekend.
Absolutely.
Have a good one. Meeting warning. That's the line.
That's all the credit. That's all the credit we have left.
Let's do it. Let's go.
Let's put more money into this thing.